Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you're joining me for this live. Whether you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube, I'm glad that you could stop by and watch. If you're watching recorded later, I'm glad for you to stop by and watch as well. I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce myself as people are joining the live for those of you who found this video but don't know me. My name is Leah Courtney and I am a homeschool mom of 4. I have 2 who have graduated from homeschooling, one that is in college and one that has already finished up a 2-year associate's degree in college, and then I have 2 who are high schoolers as well. I am a business owner at As We Walk Along the Road, and I offer resources for literature-based homeschooling as well as encouragement for homeschool mamas there. So I'm glad to see you here today. If you have comments or questions as I'm doing this live, please feel free to leave them for me. If I don't see them right away, that's because it's sometimes hard for me to see the comments as the video's going on, but I will get to your comments and questions later. I'll be going back and checking for those. And if you're watching the recorded version later, I would love to have you leave me any comments or questions as well, and I'll be going back and checking for those. So I'm so glad that you're here. This Facebook Live is actually a part 1 live, and the second part is going to be on Friday at the same time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And today we're talking about the first part of the topic, how and why to build a literature-rich culture in your home and homeschool. So today we're going to be talking about why that's so important. We're getting the why behind building this literature-rich culture. And then on Friday, we're going to be talking about the how part of this. How can you build this literature-rich culture in your home and homeschool? But it's always good to have the why first, because when we know the importance of doing this, we can then understand better how to do it as well, and we can be a little bit more motivated to do it when we know the why behind it. So there are 3 main reasons that I think it is so valuable to have a literature-rich culture in your home and homeschool. And by literature-rich culture, I probably need to define that first, but I'm talking about a home and family environment as well as a homeschool environment that is full of great books and is full of everything to do with great books. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a literature-rich culture. And there are 3 reasons that I think it is so important and so valuable to build this literature-rich culture. The first is because building this literature-rich culture is going to help to create kids who love great books. Now, I will be the first to tell you that even though I am an avid reader, and even though our home and homeschool has always been full of great books, I have not automatically raised 4 children who are avid readers. None of my kids are just like constantly picking up books and reading them for fun, but they are kids who can see the value of a really good book and can enjoy it. So they don't want to necessarily pick up books and read them just for fun, just to have a book to read, which is sort of what I do. Even if it's not the best book in the world, I just love to read and love to have a new book going. They're a little bit more particular, but once they find a great book, they can really enjoy it. And so developing this literature-rich culture is going to result in kids who do love great books more than kids who aren't exposed to these things as they're growing up. I think this is especially important in our culture now because it's so easy to get distracted from reading great books. There's so much else to do that demands our time. Screens and social media, videos, there's just so much that draws us away from reading great books. But having this literature rich culture, having a home environment that's filled with great books, can encourage kids to want to read the great books. The second reason, and this is probably the one that is most important to me, is that this literature rich environment can help to create strong family relationships. We have always read aloud. I read aloud to my older kids. In fact, I just stopped this year. I haven't read aloud to my high schoolers, mainly because both of them are taking some outside classes or classes online, and so it makes it a little bit harder to schedule our time together. But I've always read aloud, even to my older kids. When the kids were younger, we would read aloud at nap time, we'd read aloud at bedtime. As they started getting a little bit older, lunchtime was our read aloud time. I would help the kids get lunch on the table, and then I would sit and read while they ate lunch, and then I would eat lunch afterwards. So that was always our read aloud time. But no matter what time we used, we always had a good book going. And this reading aloud time really created some great family relationships because it gave us a chance to bond over great books. We could discuss the books. We could talk about whether we liked them. We could talk about the characters in the books. We could talk about whether or not we thought that the characters handled a situation in the right way. We could compare this book that we're reading with another book that we had read in the past. And all of these really great discussions helped us to bond together as a family. And I think that's one of the most valuable things about creating this literature-rich culture in your home, is that it will really help to cement those relationships. And homeschooling for us has always been about building relationships. That's always been one of the key aspects of homeschooling for us. And this environment of great literature really has contributed to that. So I definitely encourage you, when you're establishing this literature-rich culture, to read aloud and read aloud often. We'll talk more about that in part 2 as well. And then the last reason that I would share with you today about why it's so important to build this literature-rich home and homeschool culture is that kids who are exposed to great books, kids who are reading great books, increase their critical thinking skills. And reading a book and discussing a book does this in a way that other things don't do that. So kids can sit on social media all day or watch videos all day, and they're not always stimulated to think critically. A lot of times social media, and speaking even for myself as an adult, a lot of times on social media, it's easy to just scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll, and you're not even paying attention, and you're not really even registering anything. And so you're definitely not developing critical thinking skills. On the other hand, when you're sharing great books together and you're talking about what happened in the book, and you're talking about decisions that the characters made, and you're talking about foreshadowing how an event at the beginning of the book points to something that's going to happen later on, all of those can increase critical thinking skills. And so constantly exposing kids to these great books can really help them to develop those important critical thinking skills. So those 3 reasons to increase their desire to read, their desire for great books, to increase family relationship time and create those opportunities to bond over a great book, and to help kids develop their critical thinking skills. All of those are important benefits to creating this literature-rich home and homeschool. So now that you know how important it is, how can you do this? What are some practical ways that you can create this literature-rich culture and environment in your home and homeschool? I'm really glad you asked because that is going to be answered in part 2 on Friday. So make sure that you join me back for another live at 1:30 on Friday. That's Eastern Time. And I'll be answering that second part of this question. How can you build this literature-rich culture and environment now that you know how important it is? So thank you for tuning in this time, and I will see you in the part 2 episode on Friday.